Welcome back to the Finger WAG podcast, the undefeated Finger WAG podcast. I am your host, Gideon Hertz, and I am here with undefeated Hoya, Jake Foote. Jake, how you feeling?
Awesome.
Sun is shining. The birds are chirping. Your Hoyas are 4-0. We said coming into the year, best case scenario, they go into the MTE undefeated. They've got one game standing in between them and that. That's the Wagner game. You would expect and hope that they just take care of business. But this is the best possible timeline. Your Hoyas are undefeated and beat yesterday a really good Clemson team.
Yeah, for sure. That Clemson team is definitely good. We're so far out from what's going to happen the rest of the year. We do kind of have to play wait and see on how good of wins these actually are. But like you said, you can't be better than undefeated. This had to be the goal going into the MTE. And I think when we talked back in the summer, we said, there's a lot of variability in what this group might look like. But because of the difficulty of these two games, the Maryland and Clemson game off the jump, you're going to find out pretty quickly what you are. And I think we're a really serious operation. I think they're a good basketball team.
I would agree. And I will say, kind of behind the scenes yesterday, you saw just how excited the players were. There's that video of Vince going up into the student section, which we'll talk about, but shout out students who absolutely showed up for that game. Student section was packed from the jump. Great to see. And they got some awesome moments, including that ending with Vince in the student section. That was great. But behind the scenes, staff, coaches, everybody around the program is pumped. That was a big win, and I think it was exciting for everyone to see it all come to fruition. Just congratulations to the whole operation. We're 4 games in, so we're not gonna throw any parties quite yet, but they have done what is needed from them, and I think they are starting to feel the confidence for sure.
And yesterday was just so important for student engagement. It
Huge.
felt like a little bit of a changing of the guard. It's probably going to take a bit of time to get the collective of the DMV filling up a NBA arena to come watch them play. But you got 1,000, potentially more students there yesterday.
Yep.
There's been numerous efforts in years past where you get the students riled up for one game on a one Saturday, and you're down 14-2, 4 minutes in, and all the students are saying, same old Georgetown. Why give this program my time, my money, my weekends? And for the first time in what felt like a long time, they got some student support, some excitement around the program, and they delivered. And we've been saying you just got to keep stacking days, stacking results, stacking weeks, but that stacking good experience for the fan base and the student body is a part of that. And yesterday, if you continue to win, was a massive first step in the right direction.
Huge. Cannot be said enough to actually deliver on one of those home games where you really get students to come out and then not only give them a win, but give them a win against a good team with some moments in there to get people excited. All of that is huge. It's exciting time on the hilltop for sure. Let's dive into. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as exciting as I can remember, the last 4 or 5 weeks feels like about as much momentum as we've had in the last decade.
100%.
So, yeah, pretty fired up. No other way around it.
Let's relive this one, go through a game recap. There's a lot to like from this game. And, one of the big takeaways for me is just how good Clemson is, even though they're bringing in, I think Brad Brownell said 10 new guys. They're a good program that plays good basketball. They are probably, we'll see by the end of the year, but to me, they look like an NCAA tournament team with a lot of options. They tested you in a lot of ways, particularly with foul trouble, and Georgetown responded. So a lot to like. Let's dive into this one. First set of the game, I always, as I said, like to look at it. It's a high screen and roll to Julius right at the top of the key, kicks it over to Caleb for 3 on the wing. Just a great way to start. Another really, really nice offensive set and assist from Julius, who is starting to feel really comfortable in that role. Immediately down on the other end, setting the tone, there's that recovery block by Julius and KJ. They both block it. KJ wedgies it. A really, really nice defensive play. Goes back down. Julius gets a great bucket inside, but and gets fouled, but misses the 3-point play. Thought he might have gotten away with a little bit of a hook there, but it's not called. This was Julius really starting the game incredibly strong. And we'll talk about the fouls because that really changed the complexion of this. But Julius was great in the first couple of minutes before he got bogged down in foul trouble for sure.
Yeah, first 4 minutes, he gave you 4 good minutes, especially defensively, where they made a concerted effort to play through RJ Godfrey from the beginning, and he kind of didn't do much of anything on Julius, which was great. And then on the offensive side of the ball, he's continuing to prove that where he is best and most efficient is catching the ball in those short roll situations. He not only had the kick out to Caleb on the first possession, but he had a kick out to Isaiah a couple possessions later where Isaiah probably should have shot the ball, but drove baseline and got fouled and made 2 free throws. Kind of unfortunate that Julius that he only got 8 minutes of reps in a game like this against an actual really serious and physical front court. We'll talk about it, but I think a lot of that was his fault and how he played with fouls. But still, definitely it's stuff to improve on with Julius, but I think we've talked about this, that there's going to be a ton to improve on as this kid gets reps, but that he is definitely showing flashes of encouragement and that there's a good player there.
So next play is Julius's first foul call that honestly was awful because the foul was not on Julius. It was on Jaden Fort. His first should not have been on him. I mean, I guess you could say it's a small thing, but it mattered, obviously. Watching this back, I am just like flabbergasted that they gave this foul to Julius. It's so clearly Fort. I don't know what the referees were looking at there. This was egregious to me.
I agree. The 3 fouls Julius is going to have to foul him out in numbers 3, 4, and 5 were all of Julius is doing, and he needs to play smarter in those situations. But 1 and 2,
awful.
You feel for the kid because you are right. Fort took the switch on Buckner. Buckner beat him left. Julius was underneath the rim, but Fort went hip to hip with him and contested. And they both contested, but Fort got his arm. Foul goes to Julius. 2 possessions down. Julius is the victim of a Welling flop on a standard post up, and the kid's on the bench, and he doesn't get to build on that momentum. And then as a result of that, then you're tinkering with the 5 lineup basically the rest of the way to try to keep guys out of foul trouble and get you to the finish line, which I'm sure we'll touch upon. Cooley did a pretty miraculous job, and Vince deserves an enormous amount of credit for how long he played with 4 fouls. But just, kind of somewhat of an unfortunate circumstance that in that first half especially, you were really on the ropes because of the position the foul calls on the centers put you in.
Absolutely. And then in between all of that, there's a screening foul called on Fort, which I want to point out because there were a lot of potential screening fouls that the refs could have called in this one, particularly on Georgetown, who I think struggled a little bit to set clean screens. The one that they actually called on Fort seemed to me like one of the weaker ones. I want to talk about screening a little bit later on. I know everybody's favorite topic, but it is literally my favorite topic.
Yeah, the Fort call didn't bug me, and I think it was pretty. It's honestly a good thing for Fort to get called on those things because you can tell he has the athleticism to survive at this level, but the mind hasn't really caught up. The speed of play, especially when he's asked to play big as a 5 has been tough. So he kind of needs to learn what he can get away with and what he can't. So honestly, the whistles on him like that are a good thing for the learning process.
Totally. And it was a foul. I just there were a lot of more egregious screening fouls that went uncalled in this. Then you get a really weird sequence with a Vince kickball, clearly a kickball. Refs just kind of miss it. Not a great day for the Zebras on this one. KJ gets his dunk blocked the other way. Clemson comes back down and goes up 2 on a layup. I noted this because this is the first time Georgetown has trailed all season.
Oh, wow.
Especially in big games, I think. They might have been down 2 at one point to Binghamton. I tried to check that. I could not confirm. But in either case, this is the first time Georgetown has trailed in a real game this season. Then we just get a lot of sloppy play at around the 13-minute mark. Jay Will comes in. Thought it was a rough day for Jay Will. He didn't get minutes in the second half, in part because of that. And indicative of this was tries to enter really early into Vince in the post, just a bad low pass that didn't need to get thrown, that the offense kind of struggled a little bit with him. Just wasn't just wasn't a great day for him. I don't think that there's anything to be too concerned about there. I liked how Cooley responded to that. Caleb comes back, hits a big three to tie it up, ending a 5-minute field goal drought that was Georgetown had a really hard time scoring. And once again, a guy steps up and makes a big, big shot when Georgetown needs it. Then I saw this on the rewatch. Peacock completely like screws up the feed. Looks like they put a camera on the top of the Washington Monument or something, looking down at the court. Ridiculous. But during that, Clemson went on a little bit of a run. A lot of sloppy offense from Georgetown. But Mac comes back and makes another step back three. Again, another really, really big shot to keep Georgetown connected when Clemson was making their run. Then Julius picks up his third. This, I think, as you said, this was he's in a tough spot, but his hands are down on the drive, and so he's going to get called for that more often than not. He's just got to be able to defend with his hands straight up a little bit more, I think. He stays with him, which I thought was interesting, until he brings in Seal a little bit later to give him a spell. And Seal immediately gets called for a foul. This kind of unlucky offensive player just turns into him after a rebound, and Seal kind of then goes and tries to grab the ball. Just run back, just avoid him. No need to get anywhere near him on that, but a little bit unlucky more than anything. A lot of back and forth, and then KJ comes down with a really nice in rhythm three at the top of the key off of a drive and replace. That was just a really nice shot to see KJ knock down. That in rhythm three, again, a big one that keeps Georgetown in it. And then he misses a shot at the buzzer. Georgetown goes into the half trailing for the first time this year, 36-33. But all told, I think you feel pretty good because the offense was sloppy. The defense was good, but a lot of fouls being called. Georgetown down 3. And I think you feel like we can make some adjustments coming out of half. And that's what they end up doing for sure.
Yeah, 36-33 was an enormous win. A couple things happened in that last 7-minute stretch that, for me, kind of validated that they're good. Because, like I said, I called them on the ropes earlier, and that's exactly what they were. Clemson had a chance to kind of knock them down and knock out punch a little bit, get that lead up to 10-12. And by then, the question is, do you have the offensive firepower to erase that in the second half? And they got just enough stops, and they made just enough shots to keep themselves at an arm's length. A lot of credit to the 3 threes that they made. Caleb made the first. Mac made a huge step back, and Mac's making it a theme that he's just a big shot maker at times when they don't have a lot going on offensively. And then KJ made a huge one. And then defensively, that last 7 minutes, they were awesome. They first 12, 13 minutes of the game, they got their butt kicked. I think Clemson had 27 points at the under 8 mark. We were getting killed on the offensive glass. We didn't really have a solution for Carter Welling. And Vince played the last 5 minutes of the first half with 2 fouls without fouling while playing good defense, which was a theme of Vince both in the first half and in the second half, that he played this basically a collective 15 to 20 minute stretch without fouling in moments that he absolutely could not foul. And the team played well in that stretch too. So, you go into half feeling like, damn, they feel like they're better than us. Not a lot of things are going our way. We're really up against it with the center rotation right now and the foul trouble. We've made a lot of threes that might not be replicable in the second half, but all of that was against you, and you were still totally at an arm's length distance. And then we'll talk about it. Cooley just pulled all the right levers in the last 20 minutes. They stylistically, he obviously, he changed things, especially defensively, which we'll talk going to a little bit more zone, which was probably in part to protect the big man, but it also generated a lot of turnovers. It allowed KJ to really play free safety, which led to runouts, which was their offense in the second half, was runouts and free throws. But just team showed a lot of fight in that last 6-7 minutes of the first half, which good teams do.
Yeah. So Vince starts the second half, which I think, to your point, the right call, just another good decision from the staff. A little bit of a sloppy first offensive set, but it ends with a Vince bucket on a nice roll, good pass from Malik, and a little bit of a bunny there that, let's be honest, Vince has struggled to make some of those early this year, and he made them in the second half. He starts with 2. right away, and then we'll talk about the big one he makes at the end of the end of this game. But that was really nice to see, immediately paying off. Really nice finish. Then I just noted Caleb having to guard up a little bit, being put on Davidson, the big fifth year, just huge. I mean, he's really strong. He's putting Caleb underneath the basket. Caleb is fighting and makes a great recovery block
Yeah, on the up and
on
under.
that up and under play, and then goes back the other way. One of the best sort of transition sequence. KJ swings it to the corner to Mac on the left wing, and then Caleb on the above the break three on the right wing, coming in late. He makes that three. Great offense off of really, really good defense, and a great play from Caleb.
And Caleb was, in both these games, Maryland and Clemson, he was awesome. If you look at the box score, you might see like, oh, he shot 5 of 14, but that's not indicative of how he played offensively. He was on the wrong end of like 4 grenades at the end of shot clocks.
Yeah.
And like you said, he took on that Davidson matchup, which in reality was our weak link out there, kind of the mismatch.
Yeah.
And I talked about it last week where, Elijah Saunders was relatively well thought of, and he had a really good game against Marquette yesterday. And it was pretty evident that Caleb kicked his ass. Now, yesterday, I don't think that he kicked Davidson's ass. I think Davidson probably got the better of him. But Davidson is a far better player than Caleb, at least at this juncture. Davidson was probably commanding $1 to $1.5 million in the portal. That's a guy that, it was probably a top 50 to 75 guy available in the portal, period. And he's 6'10", and Caleb's 6'7" on a great day. And he battled with him. He made everything hard for Davidson. He did just enough rebounding the basketball. He did just enough shooting the ball. He made 3 big threes. He makes a huge and one in the second half. Or it wasn't an and one. It should have been.
Yeah.
To extend the lead to 9 at some point in the stretch where they went on a run. And again, he goes up against a guy with a far better pedigree than him. Just goes toe to toe like it's nothing.
Yeah. I mean, your point is exactly right. Even if you just look at the box score, both end with 13 points. Nick Davidson, 1 of 4 from 3, 5 of 9 from the field. Caleb, 3 of 7 from 3, 2 of 7 from the field. So they cancel each other out offensively, but that is a massive win for Georgetown. Even if Nick Davidson is getting some of those big buckets, which he did get, I mean, it's a really tough cover. He's 6'10", at least 240, and just strong. I mean, he's a fifth-year guy. He's been playing this game for a while.
And he can shoot it.
Like, he can shoot it.
He's a threat from 22 feet and in. You got to guard him all the way out to the line. He missed a huge one down the stretch, which would have given them the lead. But he made one in the first half. Like you said, just a tough cover. And Caleb played like 37 minutes covering the guy. And without getting in foul trouble at all when he committed a foul on like the first or second possession of the game. Just a impressive effort by that kid who just keeps getting better, stronger, tougher week by week. Winning kid.
Yeah. Which leads to, for me, play of the game, possibly the play of the year. Davidson in the post discards Caleb, sort of wraps him up, discards him. He's got a wide open lane to the bucket. Isaiah Abraham comes from the weak side and absolutely sends it back. Incredible weak side block, gets up above him, stuffs it back, just smokes him. And frankly, rewatching it, it's out on Davidson. That should have been Georgetown ball.
Yeah, it should have.
Deserved a finger wag, if I may say so myself. That was a finger wag-worthy block. Georgetown ultimately gets an empty possession out of it, which I think is huge, but they have to defend for a little bit more, a couple more seconds, because refs missed that ball is clearly out on Davidson. Just a huge play by Abraham.
Huge play. Isaiah definitely struggled a little bit to find his footing in this one. He only played 12 minutes. He missed a couple of shots, although he made a really big step back in that second half.
Yep.
But that was the inflection point of the game.
Yeah,
he blocked that shot. They went on a run right afterwards. When you're the fifth guy out there, like Deshaun or Isaiah, it's about basically 2 things: not hurting the team, which I think both of them did that. They held their own, and it's just about moments. You're not like KJ that's going to get 22 opportunities with the ball in your hand. You get 1, 2, 3, 4 moments a game to make a really critical play. that can swing things one way or the other. For Isaiah, it was that block. For DHS, it was the 2 free throws down the stretch.
Huge.
And when your role players make those plays, that's how you win close games.
Vince gets called for his 4th right after this, which was maybe the worst call.
Garbage.
I think Tiki Tack is even putting it lightly. There was literally no contact.
His 3rd one was junk too, where I think it was Buckner or Porter. I think it was Porter, because Porter had the 8-point flurry to start the second half, where he just drove into the lane, and maybe he was fouled, but he threw the ball up in the air. There was 4 Georgetown guys up against him. It was dealer's choice who committed the foul, and they gave it to the one guy who we couldn't afford to stack another one on. So kind of the story of the day, that whenever Julius couldn't commit a foul and whenever Vince couldn't commit a foul, they got a quick one until Vince basically held serve the final 13 minutes. But yeah, that 4th foul on Vince was a phantom one.
Yep. Julius comes in, gets his 4th immediately on that offensive rebound, which
was a foul.
Just no business being in that spot. Just run back. I get it. But right after that, as the broadcast, I think, is still replaying the foul, KJ gets a pick 6 and dunk, and Georgetown is coming. Right after that, the Isaiah Abraham step back 2. That was a big shot. Then Mac with a 3 for the lead. So really, really nice set that I noted. Caleb with the ball on the right wing, drives middle with KJ diving to the basket. Mac replacing, forces the defense to either have to show and switch to take away the KJ dive, and then Mac is wide open at the top of the key for a 3, knocks it down. Really, really subtle, just nice set that they pulled out at a big moment, and Mac knocks it down.
As we said, Malik Mac, big shot taker, big shot maker. But on that play, I feel most encouraged about what Caleb was able to do. Caleb had 2 possessions where he made a pass for a basket. There's a one a few minutes later where he has a bounce pass to the elbow where KJ flashes across the face of the paint and hits a little 16-footer. But Caleb is showing an ability to put the ball on the deck, get to his left hand, make a pass, make a 12-footer, facilitate for perimeter players. He really, Kyle, his dad's on record that he was going to Villanova if he didn't come here, if Cooley didn't, really put the full court press on him. But he really is vintage Villanova. He plays off 2 feet. He never gets sped up. I mean, he's played 110 minutes this year. He's had 1 turnover. And that's not in a low usage role like he was last year, just standing on the perimeter. It's still not the highest usage, but 17% usage.
Yeah.
The ball's getting played through him a decent enough amount where they're asking him to make things happen, and he just executes.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Then Julius fouls out on what I think is just a no call there. I don't think it's a foul.
I think it was the right call.
Really?
Just on principle, Julius has to know.
Down. Yeah.
He has to know they were gonna just throw it to a big man, face him up, and dribble him down, and just dare him to play with 2 arms up. And if you bring your arms below your waist and you put them on the hip of a guy, especially when you're 7 feet and not moving laterally all that quick, it looks like a foul. And you saw it, Julius on his 3rd foul and on his 5th foul, both KJ and Malik came up to him immediately, and both of them just had their hands up. They're trying to teach that.
I'm with you.
I think it was the right call.
I think the 3rd foul, absolutely. The 5th foul, and I'm with you. His hands are down. If your hands are in that position and the offensive player generates contact, more often than not, you're going to get called for it. I think the difference here is that he was moving laterally pretty well on this one and was in position. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. He has to be able to defend that with his hands up instead of down. And maybe he one of those doesn't get called and he's in the game late, but he fouls out and Ed has a decision to make. He goes initially small with DHS at the 5, which bold, but I thought it was a great move. And again, Cooley just has a feel for this team, what they need at that moment. And I think it was the right call to give Vince a little bit more time to reset. DHS gets some big minutes at the 5, and they start to then go offense, defense a little bit with like 14 minutes left in this game. Just a really tough decision to make, but I think they played it right.
Yeah, he figured out moments where to try to steal a minute or 2 for Vince. Was it that successful? I don't know, because I think the minutes they played for it weren't great down the stretch there, but they were successful because the last 3 minutes of the game, Vince was on the floor. So that was the purpose of just getting Vince to the under 4, and then we can just play basketball again. I did like the idea of DHS as the 5, especially when you were in that 1-3-1 where you were, one, keeping the ball pretty far from the basket for the majority of the possession, and two, I think Isaiah was out there at the time with them, and you could kind of play Isaiah as a little anchor of the 1-3-1, that if a ball got brought to the rim, he at least has the athleticism to go vertical and make it somewhat difficult. And then they gang rebounded yesterday, which I think they do well as a team. KJ and Mac, I don't think they had crazy rebounding numbers yesterday, but those long rebounds, they collectively swarm, which this team needs to do, because as we've noted numerous times, Vince and Julius are not cleaning up the defensive glass. But that's why you can kind of play small and not feel an enormous effect on the glass, provided you're generating misses, because, you know, all 5 guys that they put out there are at least athletes and have a nose for the ball. Malik made a really big rebound at some point. Where there was he got stuck down low kind of by himself and post up, or he boxed out and caught the ball pretty much at the top of a jump with like one hand.
Went
brought
above
it right down,
everybody else,
which was big. And then there was a second one, I think, closer to the end of the game, where he got caught down there again too. And the ball he just blocked it out, kind of almost 1-on-2. Ball got tipped up, and I think it either went out of bounds. I think it went out of bounds. But just the fact that he survived in those moments, and it wasn't just a cake putback, were massive moments.
Yeah. Totally agree. That rebound he had in the middle of everyone, where he just went up and jumped higher than everybody else, which is a sneaky, you know, we've talked about he's bigger, he's stronger, but his athleticism has popped a couple of times this year in a way that it didn't last year. That was one of them, where he just goes up and out jumps everybody.
I think he's a good defensive player now.
Yeah.
Like it used really to be like a liability, hoping he's average. I think he's good because he has the athleticism. His arms are long as hell. You know, you watch the Morgan State and the Binghamton game, he definitely didn't care all that much on that end. But in these games against Maryland and against Clemson, where they're giving him the assignment of, say, Justin Porter, David Coit, and saying, like, you know, KJ is going to take the perimeter threat out of the game, or at least make it really hard for him. You just have to make sure option 2 out there doesn't break us down. He's doing an exceptional job. And I don't love Porter's game, and he had that little 8-point flurry, but he didn't hurt you at all. I really don't love David Coit's game at Maryland, but he gave Marquette like 23 points yesterday.
Yeah, he really did.
That very well could have been Malik a year ago had he had that assignment. And he's ready for it on that side of the ball. I was pretty optimistic about the jump that he could make this year during the offseason. I think he's made it. And yesterday was my favorite Malik game he's ever played.
Yeah.
By a pretty wide margin. He was so good. He made the dumb foul on the 3-point shooter at the end in the second half, but that was his only mistake. Yeah,
you definitely called it. He's been great. We get Cooley pumping up the crowd after a foul, and Brendan Hayward on the broadcast with that the favorite announcer question of, do you really want to be the crowd to be making noise when your team is shooting free throws? Yes, Brendan. Yes, we do. Any noise was
yeah. Brendan doesn't realize there hasn't been noise in that building for about 11 years.
I don't think they talked about this on the broadcast, but in the building on that play, Georgetown gets a bench warning on that.
Yeah, they gave Cooley a bench warning. They talked about it on the broadcast.
Okay. James Breeding, just a ridiculous bench warning. I mean, Cooley's just like barely on the court and is pumping up the crowd, and the ref who's closest to him is still making the call, but doesn't call the warning. James Breeding comes from the other corner after everything has stopped, and again stops the game to give a bench warning to Cooley, which
I want this on the record for people tuning in, and for future people that continue to tune in. This is officially a James Breeding hate podcast.
Yeah, I will
complain about him every single time.
Yeah, I'm done with James Breeding games. I don't want him. I get so nervous when he's the ref in these type of games, where there's going to be a ton of hand checking, there's going to be a ton of ticky tack stuff around the rim, and like, you know that Clemson
was going to bring your style to you, that it was going to
Yep.
be physical as hell. And 4 minutes in the game, RJ Godfrey's on the bench and Julius Halifano is on the bench. And it's a totally different basketball game.
Yeah, it's the breeding show. He wants it to be about him. Just ridiculous.
He's a guy that's reffed in the Big East his whole life. He should know better.
Yeah. Georgetown goes to the zone, really gave Clemson issues. At one point, I think they get 2 steals in a row, maybe even 3. Just too much length. And with KJ at the top of that zone, he's just baiting them into passes that he's gobbling up. Absolutely, it was incredible.
I don't know how much they practice it, because I know that they're like a man-to-man team. They have the personnel to do it, and that's their principle. But if that, it was extremely well disciplined yesterday. And the 2 guys that were really the spearhead of it were KJ and Mac, and they really worked well together. And basically, anytime a ball was really out on the perimeter, KJ handed that off to Mac, allowing KJ to sink into more towards the free throw line and play this free safety. He made 2 steals off of it. He also really was the person preventing the ball getting to the nail, and that was how you were going to beat that, was get Godfrey or Welling the ball at the nail and then just go at the big. That's how they needed to foul Vince out. And KJ just didn't allow that access pass. Even when it went short corner, I think there was just one time where trap came, and this was on the far side of the broadcast, and they tried to throw a baseline pass. There was nothing there. Malik had help all the way down from the top, picks it off. We're off to the races. And I don't totally know if Clemson ever figured it out, but we did go a little away from it in the last 4 minutes where we were going back into these man sets. But I like that, because Brownell was starting to call timeouts, and you knew every time Brownell was calling a timeout that it was going to be that they were coming out with a set ready for the zone, because that's what they were having such trouble with. So mixing up defenses down the stretch made it hard. You know, what really kept them in the game at the end was Clemson just, they started hitting threes again in the last 10 minutes of the game, and free throws. Zach Foster had 5 free throws on the dumb play by Malik, but also a phantom block call on Malik in the transition moment. Yeah, so again, the defense down the stretch was awesome. Clemson made some tough shots and kept it a game. And, it looks like they score 74 points, which is a pretty good effort against us. But they scored 27 in those first 12 minutes. They hit a bunch of threes down the stretch. For that 25-minute window in the meat of the game, where basically the game was decided in your favor, they were really good defensively.
Yeah. Ken Pom gives you the breakdown by quarter, which is really helpful. The 2 quarters, the second quarter, third quarter, the 2 middle quarters of the game, Clemson scores 29 points.
Yeah, which is that's got to be our target goal for like our special nights, is holding a team at 60. What we did to Maryland.
Yep. Got the Malik foul on the 3-point shooter. Clemson then starts to go zone. It has a little bit of success, but then KJ, another big steal on the other end, splits the double, finishes and 1. Clemson goes up 5. Just a massive play when Georgetown needed it. Clemson then comes back down, hits the 3, so they're staying in it, and then the backdoor lob to Vince, which I think Cooley put it best. Said the screen was better than the dunk and the pass was better than the screen. Just a great lob from Malik from the right wing down to the left block, and Vince just flushes it.
The best thing of ball there, and Malik made a great pass, but it was just the set. They didn't have anything against the zone. They were trying to bleed the clock. They lost their aggressiveness. The only where they were really generating points was they were in the bonus, and every time KJ got the ball, he was getting fouled. But they were losing some steam in the half court, and that was a perfect set. And Cooley's not going to sit in the press conference and take credit for that, but that was A+.
A+, agreed. Another steal by KJ and 1 on the other end. The step back jumper off of the little flash cut from KJ, pass from Caleb, the little 16-footer that was just a great shot. And then to end it, Vince at the end of the shot clock in the middle of the zone steps up, turns, hits the little 5-footer, and he just looked like he was ready to jump through the arena at that point. It was so cool to see. He looked ecstatic. Just incredible for him to have a moment like that, to hit that shot that really did just, I think Cooley said it in his presser as well, that was the game winning shot for sure.
Couple points here. Just because I just don't want things to get lost down the stretch.
Yeah.
There was the play where DHS nothing's getting generated against the zone. DHS gets fouled on a little hook shot, makes the 2 free throws.
Two free throws
4.
for sure.
Those were massive. The KJ, I'm sure we're going to do like a 10-minute segment singing his praises, but it's not exaggeration to say that he basically went like God mode. I had thought it before the game that, this was just going to be a physical game, that you needed to not get out tough. That was non-negotiable. And I was hoping that this would be a game like Micah did a few times in the Villanova games, in the Creighton game, where he just said, get on my back. I'm getting you over the finish line. And that's what KJ did. KJ in the last 6 minutes of the game just decided, I'm not losing today. 100%. Not only did he have the 2-and-1s in the transition moments, which both were exceptional steals. One of the and-1s basically could have been a jump ball, and he just ripped it right through the guy's arms and just said, I'm stronger and I'm tougher than you. You noted that the last jump shot was off the pass from Caleb. I think that was earlier in the half. His last jump shot was the step back one to go up 9, which this is where I'm going to pivot back to now praises for Vince. Vince made an aggressive play on an offensive rebound there to get you a second possession where the ball swung back to KJ, and KJ kind of took a ridiculous shot but made a ridiculous shot. But even prior to that, on the previous possession, Clemson got the ball to the nail in those situations that I was describing, where Welling got to face him up. And we had a pretty comfortable lead at this point. We're up 7 with 2.5 minutes left. I know for a fact you don't want to be playing those last 2.5 minutes without Vince. Yeah. And Welling took him to the block, to his left hand, and Vince blocked him without fouling him. Yeah. It's not in the box score. Vince got awarded 0 blocks, but he 100% blocked a shot. Yep. And we were off the other end. He generated a second opportunity. KJ makes the shot, 4-point swing. Yep. So what Vince did in those last 4 minutes with the alley-oop dunk, the make on the last possession, what he contributed to that play right there. He also generated additional free throws on Malik's missed and 1 free throw. There's a laundry list of little plays that Vince made that were a massive difference. So again, if we circle back to individual players at the end of this, there's not going to be enough time to basically keep all the praise on what KJ and what Vince did and what Malik did and what Caleb did to win this game.
Big takeaways here. We've talked a little bit, mentioned a couple of them, but for you, what's your biggest takeaway from this game?
Man, I don't think it's a new takeaway, but they're tough as nails. Just a tough group. Yeah. Like, you have to play well to beat us. You have to. You have to bring it. You have to match our physicality. If you don't, you have to just really execute your stuff on the offensive end to beat us. Because I don't think this is a group that's going to go away easily. And I think it's a group that in close games, it's an old Providence group. They kind of relish those moments. I think major takeaways is that you have a serious backcourt with Malik and KJ. Definitely one of the best in the Big East. I think if things go right, could be in the upper echelon of the country. And Cooley's really good.
Yeah, he really is.
I can see why Providence fans were so mad he left. Because for years I was thinking is he that good? He never had a top 25 KenPom. Every year I'm looking at their roster and I'm like, it's kind of junk. He's really good. There's a reason his record in close games is so good. There's a reason he's taking KenPom 50 teams to 8 seeds. Because he wins in those moments.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest takeaways too, is he coached an outstanding game. Brad Brownell is a really, really good coach. I think he's got some weaknesses, but Clemson is a perennial NCAA tournament team out of the ACC, a team that is in that, in the top echelon of that league. And Cooley and his staff went out and made all of the right moves to help this team win this game. And the guys executed on all of that. For me, I think it's the backcourt. You've been beating the drum on Malik Mack since the summer, and I think you've been proven right on that. He looks great. But the backcourt together, there's a ceiling on this backcourt that just is really high.
And it's so complimentary.
Yeah.
The two of them play off each other so well, and they basically cover for each other in the areas where they're not very great. Yeah. And you mentioned that last time. I wholeheartedly agree. They're a match made in heaven. Now, looking back now, I wish that we played Mike at the 2 last year and just played bigger.
Yeah.
Because this is what Malik needs next to him.
Yeah. There was a play sort of down the stretch, just a really quick give and go at the top of the key between KJ and Malik. Malik's and one that he doesn't finish last year at all, but
he doesn't even drive it last year.
Yeah.
That was what I was most impressed with, that he caught the ball and he knew he had an inch on Porter and he just beat him to his
Yeah.
left hand,
Yeah.
which in the first half, Malik wasn't that assertive offensively, and honestly the
Yeah.
whole game, but I love that. He's picking his spots much more judicially than he did last year. I was a little critical of some of the shots he took in the Maryland game, but he pitched a perfect game offensively yesterday.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it was cool to see for sure on rewatch. KJ and Malik on that play knew exactly what they were doing and just had the chemistry to go do it. They finished the game as a backcourt, 9 assists to 2 turnovers. This is something that has started to pop for me. Georgetown is 9th in the country right now,
Me
an
too.
offensive turnover rate. They are playing really clean basketball, which I think is a credit to Malik and KJ as the primary ball handlers. But guys like Caleb, who you said, 110 minutes, 1 turnover, they are playing
Yeah.
really low mistake basketball.
I'm glad you brought
Yeah,
this up because I didn't make a lot of notes for today, but I noted I got a little ball security section here.
yeah,
This offense has actually been pretty solid, and
yeah,
we talked about it, that it's just not going to shoot well, and it hasn't shot that well, but it does the things that old Cooley teams did, which is they get to the line and they get to the line.
hmm,
KJ shot 14 free throws. Vince is shooting 15 free throws per 40 minutes. Malik's free throw rate is doubled from last year. They're getting to the line. They offensive rebounded enough, not a ton. But what you just mentioned, they do not turn the ball over. Now, if you run through the roster, like I said, 1 turnover in 111 minutes. Abraham, 1 turnover in 63 minutes. Vince, 2 turnovers in 85 minutes. Julius, 0 turnovers in 52 minutes. It's crazy that your centers have played 140 minutes with 2 turnovers. And
yeah,
one of them was Vince yesterday, just dropping a ball on a tricky little entry pass. He had 0 turnovers going into the day yesterday. But like you also said, Mac and KJ, who are the guys with the ball in their hands more than everybody, Mac's turnover rate's at 12%, 5% down from last year. We talked about it, that he had to kind of cut up some of that stuff out. KJ, who was a bit of a turnover machine at Arizona, is down to 8% on his turnover rate.
yeah,
He's halved it, while his usage rate has gone up 4%. It's a similar story to Micah, where you looked at all of KJ's advanced numbers last year and you're like, damn, they're really good. And everything's gotten better. It's obviously a small sample size, just 4 games, but he's halved his turnover rate. His free throw rate was in the 5th percentile at 46, 47%, which is crazy good. It's up to 65%, which is top percentile, elite. His steal rate's up, his rebound rate's up, his usage is up, his true shooting percentage is up. He's basically, if you compared him analytically right now, he's basically doing, again, 4-game sample size, so let's not go crazy, but he's having the same footprint on the game as what Devin Carter was doing when he won Big East Player of the Year.
100%.
Carter made more threes, KJ gets to the line more, but they're doing similar things on both ends of the ball. And it's just a product of Cooley just breathing confidence into the kid. And he's a kid that you can't put a leash on.
Yeah.
It's like a dog. It's an overused reference in basketball, but you just got to let that kid go.
Yeah.
He'll make, like you've said in past episodes, he's going to make some sloppy mistakes here and there, but he's also going to go win you the game.
Yeah. Which he did.
100%.
Yeah. It goes back to me, the feel that Cooley has for this team and the feel for individual players like KJ, who, Arizona fans had were critical of him because of his turnovers. And I think a lot of that comes down to the role he was being asked to play, how he was being played, and Cooley understanding him as a player. DHS is another one who I thought was massive in this game, just eating up minutes, making the right plays. They stuck him at the nail against the zone, and he was able to keep the ball moving. The offense wasn't great, but he just makes the right plays. And I think it's a critical skill that Cooley has of understanding what his kids need.
And I think on DHS, I'm a little sad that he's probably not going to get the chance to really explore who he is offensively.
Yeah.
But it's for the best of the team that he's this 5-6 point, 4 rebound guy. But what I stood out to me yesterday was discussed Isaiah's great play, but Isaiah was a little not totally up for it at least in the first half there. It was, I don't know if it was obvious, but it was the right choice that DHS was the 5th guy out there with the other 4 down the stretch. And again, you don't really notice him out there, and that's complimentary. You know, if you're the fifth guy out there, you just don't want to be bringing the collective unit down more than anything else. And that was DHS at Maryland. You know, he was by far, or not by far, but he wasn't up to par with any of those 5 starters that they had, who were all pretty damn good players.
Yeah.
But he played 15 minutes a game on a Sweet 16 top 10 KenPom team because that's what he does. He can be out there in those moments without hurting you.
Yeah.
And I felt that way yesterday about him. He rebounded the ball in the first half. He got 5 rebounds in the first half, which they needed. Stepped slow on a couple rotations, but it didn't kill you. He made those 2 free throws, and he's going to play a lot on this team.
Yeah.
So I don't totally know where I was going with that, but
it's just he's going to have a game too where he. Yeah, I think he's going to have a couple
and ones, or maybe hit a 3, and he'll have a 12-point game.
Yeah, but he just does what you need from a 6th or 7th guy to come in and help you win ball games. That's what he does. Everything he does contributes to winning, whether it's, you know, on the box score or not, contributes to the success of the team.
Unfortunate thing is he's probably your 5th guy right now, and
yeah, that's true.
You probably wanted that 5th guy to just be a little better and maybe a little more talented offensively. But, and this is the most important thing with this group, is they don't have to sacrifice anything culturally or identity-wise when they rotate amongst these 5th, 6th, 7th guys.
Yeah.
They all, you know, the train continues moving in the same direction, and it stays on the tracks because these guys all have they bring the same qualities to the team, especially defensively and athletically. You know, Jeremiah doesn't have it on a given night. That's okay. We're just going to ride our 2 horses, play a little bigger.
Let's do a little bit here just on where Georgetown stands from a metrics perspective. Looking at KenPom, I think they actually drop in KenPom down to 73rd. I don't think people should be particularly concerned about this. You said last week, and I think it's important to note that you need a month or 2 for KenPom to bake out their preseason predictions. Georgetown is the only Big East team, I think. No, maybe UConn got there last night, but
yeah, UConn got one last night.
Yeah, so one of 2. No, so UConn did win, but Georgetown is the only Big East team with 2 wins against power conference opponents in this early season. The Big East is struggling across the board, as we, I think, alluded to, and I'm not surprised by. But Georgetown remains very, very strong. 2 wins against power conference teams, though they still sit at 3rd on KenPom. Talk us off the ledge, Jake, to the extent that people need to hear.
Okay, so like I said last time, don't look at KenPom for a month and a half. Also, KenPom is not like an enemy of the state.
Yes.
He doesn't hate Georgetown.
No.
He probably isn't the biggest fan of Georgetown's recent success, nor lack thereof, nor a fan of Cooley's track record, according to his metrics, because Cooley's been metrics be damned his entire career.
For sure.
Now, if you walk through this, why you're 73 and not 40 to 50, which is probably in reality what you are at the worst. 1, it's baking in those preseason predictions where he has you at 82 alongside GW, which I think you were better than that from the jump for sure. And 2, he's got 4 games of data that I'm sure he's weighing equally the same. And those last 4 minutes of the Morgan State game, those last 4 minutes of the Binghamton game where you go a collective minus 22, that negative 22 brings you down as much as the positive 15 on Maryland and Clemson. Yeah. Now, if you looked at, I ran it through Hoop Explorer, and we're a plus 29 net rating in the Maryland and Clemson games, and an even net rating in the Morgan State and Binghamton games. Now, anybody with a brain knows that those games don't really matter, and obviously don't weigh as much as basically a quad 1/quad 2 game that you're getting in both away at Maryland and home versus Clemson. And those with brains should react accordingly and say, damn, this is probably a pretty good basketball team. Yeah. Probably not the 73rd best team in the country that's worse than GW, who we just kicked their ass on the road. And I think what we've learned about these exhibitions is that they were serious.
They were.
A lot of these results are translating to the regular season, not just for Georgetown, but across the board, because coaches treated them as real. Now, also, my original point that Cooley doesn't give a shit about the metrics. His Providence teams were never good on KenPom, in many ways because Cooley won so many close games.
Yeah.
Now, a 3-point win versus a 1-point loss in KenPom on the metrics, it's not going to change at all whether you won the game or lost the game, because he's measuring a lot of this stuff on points per possession adjusted against your opponents. And a 4-point swing over an 80 possession game isn't all that much, especially over a 31 game season. This is why KenPom has a metric called luck.
Yeah.
And luck isn't like, oh man, this guy hit a shot off the backboard in the second half. Where he measures luck, it's essentially your record compared to what his algorithm says your record should be. So if you win more games, when you win 20 games and he says you should be a 17-win team, he's going to say you're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Cooley has like a 65% career winning percentage in games decided by less than 5 points. So KenPom says that he's lucky because even though his metrics may spit out that he's the 52nd best team in the country, he's won 4 of these coin toss games that make his group a 22-win team rather than an 18-win team.
Yeah.
He's done it his whole career. So don't worry too much about it, because at March, if you are on the bubble, the committee is not looking at KenPom. They are looking at your quad 1 games, your quad 2 games, the best teams you beat, the worst teams you lost to. And regardless of what happens to Maryland and Clemson this year, and again, their results is going to affect you both in the metrics and in how the committee views these wins in terms of quadrants. You needed these. And we discussed it, that you need probably 9 non-conference wins, 12 conference wins at a minimum. And this was the pathway of getting them. You needed both of these, and you did it. So don't jump off the ledge. In fact, celebrate.
Yeah.
They did their job.
100%. All of that, I think, is really helpful. And yeah, I mean, you go and you beat Clemson and Maryland, which is 100% what you needed to do. Maryland gives you a little help yesterday, despite losing Pharrell Payne on one of the worst injuries I think I've ever seen. The problem is that they do that against Marquette, which will come back and bite you down the road. But still, I think that shakes out as a positive for Georgetown's strength of schedule.
Yes, you should be rooting for Maryland in that game because you have the ball in hand that you have the win against them, and you have it on the road.
Yeah.
So you need them top 75 in net so that they're quad 1. Now, the concern with that is that they're probably going to play the rest of the season with Pharrell Payne, without Pharrell Payne, who's definitely their best player. And then their second and third best players, Miles Rice and Solomon Washington, aren't playing, even though Rice miraculously recovered to score 15 points and play 27 minutes against you.
Weird.
Now, had we played Maryland without Payne and Rice, we probably beat them by 35.
Yes.
Which then makes me feel a lot better about where we stand compared to Marquette, who just got their ass kicked at home by a Maryland team that played 17 minutes with Payne and didn't play Rice and didn't play Solomon Washington. My concern is that this Maryland team, especially if Payne's out for the year, is probably going to be pretty bad. And I think you might be crossing your fingers to get them in the top 70.
I think they're around that.
I think if they were healthy, they're 50.
Yeah.
40 to 60 in that range.
Yeah.
But they just don't have another. Buzz didn't recruit another center on that roster.
Yeah, that's true.
And the fortunate thing, this is not a Marquette dig, but the fortunate thing is Marquette doesn't have a 5 that's going to kick your ass if Payne goes out. You know, Ben Golds wants to play on the perimeter. They're trying to make Caden Hamilton a thing, and I don't think it's a thing.
Yeah.
So that was just a tricky matchup for Marquette, but I think we're also getting evidence that Marquette's not good.
Yeah. I think this is let's end here because we've got a week until Georgetown comes back and plays Wagner before they head to Florida for a big multi-team event. Hopefully that ends with Georgetown getting a shot at BYU, because based off of where things stand, and Jake, we'll talk about this future episode, hopefully dive into this. I think Georgetown is not I don't think it would be massively surprising for Georgetown to go and beat BYU. I think
this group's got a chance against anybody.
Yeah, that's right.
Stylistically, they're going to play their way. And they're, again, like we're saying, they're just not an easy team to play against.
Yeah. So we alluded to this a little bit. We'll talk more about it over the week that we have to kind of reset things. But I'm just interested in your kind of reaction here. A Big East conference that has struggled in non-conference play. A lot of losses outside of really Georgetown, UConn getting a big win against BYU last night, holding on by the skin of their teeth at the end of that one. St. John's has been okay, but lost at home to an Alabama team that just came in and took their style straight to them and said, we do this better than you. I'll put it this way. Is Georgetown the third best team in the Big East?
I'm still a little hesitant to say they are, but they've definitely played like a top 3 team in the league through our 2 weeks of data here. A lot of things can happen in terms of health. Creighton is still getting Freeman healthy, and they're probably a different team when he's healthy. Georgetown looks really good. We've discussed that on ends. I was a Villanova hater. I actually think that they're not bad.
Yeah.
But it's going to be totally up for grabs for that kind of tier right below St. John's and UConn, which I do think that St. John's still thoroughly belongs in the conversation at the top of the league.
Agreed.
And UConn probably belongs in the conversation as national championship contenders. But, we'll see. I'm hesitant to make any sort of final conclusive claims on any of these teams just with 2 weeks. But I will say that it's not good for Georgetown if they're on the bubble, that the Big East is getting their ass kicked in non-con, because it could potentially make your in-conference resume look worse, and thus you may need 13, 14 wins rather than 12. But at the same time, and I know this is kind of like a sissy way of looking at it, Georgetown needs to return to the upper echelon of the Big East. And if it's at the victim of these other teams that have toiled with you in the middle or have been better than you at the 3-4, like Creighton, Marquette, so be it.
Yeah.
If Marquette sucks and it means we're 4th, and at the end of the day, we're sweating over the bubble because Marquette wasn't good non-conference and it hurt your strength of schedule, who cares? Leave them in the dust. Let's try to leave all these programs in the dust.
100%. And I think you're right that if you're on the bubble, the dip in the conference quality is going to hurt you. I will say right now, 4 games in, Georgetown is not playing like a bubble team. They are playing like a solid NCAA tournament team. The 2 opportunities that they've had to go out and get big wins against power conference opponents, they've done it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're not going to be on the bubble just by virtue of how the rest of the year plays out, but they're doing everything that you could ask from them early in this year.
And I think it's a little overrated of that when evaluating one team's credentials for the tournament, that they're going to get docked a significant amount because the quality of the rest of the conference wasn't great. I think that was overblown 2 years ago when the committee didn't let St. John's, Seton Hall, or Providence in.
Yeah.
And the blame went to, Georgetown and DePaul were so bad that they had 4 quad 3 games. It was also that Seton Hall and St. John's and Providence lost non-conference games at the beginning of their season. And that's what the committee weighs a lot. Maybe unfair to judge a team in November that strongly, but the committee's going to look at basically, do you have no bad losses, which means Georgetown's path is going to be taking care of business twice against DePaul, twice against Xavier, twice against Seton Hall. It's going to be, you have the quad 1 wins, which, you hope you have one in Maryland. You hope Clemson becomes this top 30 team. And then you're going to get basically 6 chances to pick off BYU, North Carolina, UConn, St. John's. You probably, if you want to be in comfortably, you got to get one. And then you got to do your job at a conference, which we're basically 2/3 of the way doing our job at a conference. The 3rd leg is Dayton.
Yep.
And then, like we've talked about, you get 2 quad 1 house money shots at BYU and Carolina. But if you take care of Dayton, you're 3 for 3 on doing everything you needed to have the easiest path and the most realistic path to the tournament.
I think that's a good place to leave it for now. Any final thoughts on this game, this team as it stands, the big win over Clemson?
Proud of the group. Proud of the toughness of not only of the individuals, but of the collective. Proud of the leadership responsibility that Malik and KJ are taking on. Really happy for some of these kids that are getting their kind of like last chance moment with Cooley and it working out. Vince being the obvious one. And just, I think they got a damn good chance at just continuing to stack games and stack weeks and being there at the end of it.
Yeah. And cannot be said enough. We'll talk about it more next week, but shout out to the students for coming out, and shout out to the program and team for giving them that key win that aligns the student momentum and engagement, which was absolutely there with a big moment. And that final shot of Vince with the student section, I think might go down as one of the big moments of this year, one of the big turning points for this program, because it is just something that this program has needed for the past couple years as they've started to turn things around, needing to align student engagement with a big win, and they finally get it, and the players are pumped up about it. The students were pumped up about it. Things trending in the right direction, but a big momentum win for the team and the program, and it was great to see the students out there in force and enjoying themselves.
Yeah, cathartic moment for Vince, maybe an equally cathartic moment just for the student body and the fan base. Yeah, yesterday was a pretty damn great day to be a Georgetown basketball fan.
Yes, it was. We will have more from the Finger Wag podcast. Georgetown's got a week off again until Wagner next Saturday. Rest and recuperate, reset a little bit before they take on kind of the final portion here of their non-conference schedule, as you talked about. We'll have it all. As always, Jake Hoya Saxa.
Hoya Saxa, Gideon. Take care.